So the mayor of Tshwane delivered his second State of the Capital address during a special council sitting yesterday. The mayor started his address by responding to the Auditor-General's report on the city's finances. It was used to reflect the work done over the past year and to highlight the city's future plans as well as its projects. So what are some of the outcomes of yesterday's address? Let's weigh in with the Mayor, Cilliers Brink, who's joining us now in studio. Mayor, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Aldrin, great to be with you.
It's your second State of the Capital address. Let's start here. Do you think that the lives of the people of Tshwane have improved since you have taken over as the mayor of the city of Tshwane?
Aldrin, I fully appreciate that many people might still not experience a change because we've had to do some fundamental things in Tshwane, rebuild our tax administration capacity. We've responded as best we could in the little time we've had to the findings of the AG. But we've also appointed a new top management for the city, which is charged with changing the culture to one that is performance-driven and rooted in integrity. So I fully admit that things might not be better for most people, but we're putting in place the things that produce better service delivery, starting with the finances, the tax administration, responding to the findings of the AG, and then putting competent people in place to deliver on our mandate.
Yeah. What would you say for you are one of the top issues that you could place on an agenda and say that these are the biggest problems that I have in the city when it comes to the livelihood of your residents?
The problem we have is deteriorating infrastructure. Unfortunately, back in the 2000s, when the crucial decisions needed to be made about the upgrade of wastewater treatment plants, substations, and other basic infrastructure that delivers services to people's homes and businesses, that was neglected. In many ways, the 2000s were a bit of a wasted decade, with consumption programs instead of infrastructure programs being prioritized. So you do get electricity interruptions and so forth. Load shedding makes that worse. The fact that Gauteng is running out of water and running out of abstraction points also places pressure on us. And on top of that, people come to the city in massive numbers, to all cities in massive numbers, in hope of a better life and of better life opportunities. And there isn't always the amenities, the infrastructure, the planning in place to accommodate that kind of influx of people.
Yeah. Is it correct that the city of Tshwane also submitted its finances late to the Auditor-General?
Yes, and that was, that was a deliberate decision because in the previous year we received an adverse audit, which basically means that the credibility of the financial statements were very much in doubt. And this year, the audit committee told the city manager, rather take the time, obtain the permission from the Accountant General of National Treasury to make a later submission of the financial statements. And that was a good decision because the quality of the financials has improved. Our audit outcome has also improved from adverse to qualified. It is not where we want to be yet, but we've cleared at least 2 of the 3 fundamental findings that the AG has made. So I believe that we are well on track to achieve at least an unqualified audit in the present financial year.
In this financial year?
Yes.
Do you think that you've dealt with the legacy of the 10 billion rand irregular expenditure?
So the 10 billion in irregular expenditure did not arise in 1 year.
Yeah.
In fact, that's accumulated over a decade and includes many of the irregular contracts which the city has already set aside, including the Payo smart meter contract from way back in 2013, a contract related to the leasing of vehicles, the broadband contract, all of these legacy contracts which we had to go to court as a city to have set aside. But indeed, we can't deny that there is a fundamental issue. There's an embedded network in the city of Tshwane that continues to produce irregular expenditure. And so what we've done is we've changed our supply chain management policy. There have been management changes in that division that looks after tenders. But most importantly, we now have a permanently appointed CFO whose job it is to make sure that we deliver value. And we've also established various mechanisms to push the top administration of the city, the top management, to respond to the findings of the AG. So I think we're making progress, but we certainly haven't done everything that needs to be done.
Would you say that the former CFO was party to that embedded network that you speak of?
Well, the former CFO submitted financial statements to the AG which were clearly not credible, and when he was asked to substantiate the contents of those financial statements, he could not. So I think very much he contributed to the breakdown of the system. I'm not making any direct accusations of corruption against anyone, but clearly if you, over a period of a decade, accumulate 10 billion in irregular expenditure, you sign tenders that end in failure or litigation, there is something wrong, and there certainly are individuals who are benefiting. The key is to fix the systems and controls and to work with the prosecuting authority and the SIU to ensure that accountability happens.
Has anyone been arrested from your end that you know of in terms of the financial status of the metro?
No, and that is quite unfortunate. To give you one example, the tender to upgrade Rooiwal was found to be irregular. The city has initiated and in fact completed disciplinary proceedings against those involved in awarding the tender. We've cooperated with the SIU, and perhaps that's where the key is going to be. But remember that the city doesn't do prosecutions. We don't run the police, we don't run the MPA, but we certainly cooperate with them. And hopefully on that particular tender, the Rooiwal tender, we will see effective law enforcement and prosecution. But listen, that is one problem. We have the Zondo Commission. We've had almost nothing happen on those findings. So rebuilding the prosecuting authority at a national level is key to getting accountability in municipalities such as Tshwane.
On the disciplinary action that was taken against, I think it's 4 officials. They have been found not guilty on at least 4 of the charges and only guilty on 1 of the charge, which is in relation to consensus when the tender was before them. What do you make of the outcome of that disciplinary committee's inquiry?
So the disciplinary finding is before the city manager, who represents the city as employer in the situation. He first has to apply his mind as to what the disciplinary panel found. It's not a self-executing finding. The CM is getting legal advice, and he's acting. As a politician, I wouldn't want to preempt the decision of the city manager. The only thing we've told him is that it is absolutely critical that there be consequences for wrong conduct. And in the next week, I think the city will be able to announce the details of what the city manager has determined.
Yeah, but as the mayor, what's your take on the outcomes of that inquiry?
It would be inappropriate for me to speak before the city manager has acted. I've got the fullest confidence that the city manager is a person of integrity, that he will weigh up the evidence of the panel, and that he will act effectively. The last thing I would want to do, Aldrin, is to sit here and say to you, this is what I would want to happen, and then that is interpreted as an improper interference in that disciplinary process. It's too important for me to do that. So speak to me in a week's time, and I will tell you what the city manager has determined, and I trust that that is the right thing to do.
Okay. Hamans kraal, were you quoted correctly that by the end of this year, the people of Hamans kraal will have drinking water, clean drinking water?
So let me explain what's happening. The one aspect of it is we've got to upgrade the Rooiwal wastewater treatment plant. It should have been upgraded 20 years ago. It is hydraulically and biologically overloaded, but it's going to be a 3-year project. We've appointed the DBSA, and it's important to make the point that fixing that purification or that treatment plant is not optional. It has to happen. It's not just the people of Hamans kraal, it's the people in the area around the facility that's affected. However, we know that people can't wait for 3 years to have clean water in their taps, and through a partnership with national government, there is a package plant being built by Magalies Water on the Pinaas River line. Now, the first phase of this package plant is set to come online in September. The second phase will come online in November, and the third phase early next year. So in a phased approach, the plan is to deliver through the Magalies Water line clean water to the taps of the people of Hamans kraal substantially before the end of the year. And that was important for me to say. Although the package plant is not within the direct control of the city, it is part of our partnership with national government.
So by the end of this year?
Yes, by the end of this year, that is the plan. Now, plans can go awry. There can be various risks that happen. But if you don't pin yourself to a commitment to say, this is our plan, then there's nothing to hold you accountable to. So We visited the package plant with the minister. We are satisfied with the progress being made there, but we'll continue communicating with communities. It's not going to be, let's wait until September. It's going to be checking in every month to see what the progress is.
All right. Quickly on Eskom as well. So you have the project, and you speak about the project in your State of the Nation address, State of the Capital address as well. Tshwane Dima, but on the other end as well, Tshwane also owes Eskom. And I see that in that report that was done by the Business Day, there has been a correction to that report that you actually don't owe 8 billion.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah. I don't know where they got that from.
It is around, what, 3 billion?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is part of fixing the tax administration system. You know, if we buy bulk services from Eskom and we can't collect the money from consumers who owe us that money, that's when you end up with a very large Eskom debt. So we have to admit it. We owe that money. There's no way around it. And our response is going to be to rebuild our ability to collect from consumers. That's why you see Tshwane Yatima. We've established a project management unit to look at every aspect of the revenue value chain, from the meters to the billing, to the queries, to the credit control and debt collection. I believe that will produce results. But in the meantime, we're in continual engagements with Eskom. And let's also be honest. The effect that load shedding has on our infrastructure, the effect that load shedding has on our ability to supply electricity at peak demand to our consumers has a financial effect for which there has been no compensation. There's been a scheme for Eskom debt write-off. We've applied as the city of Tshwane, and they've told us no, because you are a metro, you won't benefit from the scheme. Okay. So there is an argument to be made that Eskom has contributed to the situation, but we're not running away from that debt. We're in continual engagement. And in fact, I think a roundtable happened with Eskom yesterday, and we'll meet that obligation.
Okay. Another one is on, I don't know if you saw this report in the Daily Maverick, the Masilela Gamatlang from the ANC saying that they will push for a motion of no confidence against you. I don't know, what's your response to this?
Well, that's fine. This is politics, and coalitions are uncertain. I've got a majority of about 2, and every month I'm ready for a motion of no confidence. The key question is, for the opposition in bringing a motion of no confidence, is what will they put in its place? We've seen in Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni what the ANC-EFF coalition looks like. It doesn't look like a compelling answer to our developmental issues. It doesn't look like a recipe for stability. But I will meet that argument. It is, of course, the job of the opposition to hold government to account, and they must bring it, and we will defend it.
Yeah. Don't you think, though, that as mayor, you should take some accountability, though, for the impact of that 4-month-long strike and the decision that was taken not to increase the salaries of the workers?
So the decision not to increase the salaries was based on our financial position. Remember, Aldrin, it's not like we sit there with a lot of money and decide what to do with the money. We have to try and make the books balance. Payment of salary increases comes from consumers. It doesn't come from something called a municipality. It comes from electricity tariffs, property rates. And if your consumers are under pressure, a decade of no economic growth, very low levels of productivity in the public sector, when you had lockdown, you had public servants who didn't go on furlough schemes or lose their jobs. The public sector was protected throughout the lockdown, while the private sector, who pay the rates and the tariffs and the taxes, had to shut down and endure severe economic hardships. There's also a history in Tshwane of unprotected strikes leading to the municipality then caving and making payments. In 1 year, in 2019, the salary bill of the municipality rocketed by 2.4 billion rand. And all of these things had to be taken into account. Now, if I was simply interested in having a smooth ride, in making everybody happy, we could have said, no, let's pay the increases.
Have you said now that you will pay the increases?
But the effect of that would have been devastating. So we are continuing with our case to get an exemption for the increases of the past. We're in mediation with organized labor, trying to resolve the issue. What we have budgeted for are the increases of the next financial year. So we understand.
So with that particular budget, you are not going to include the what is outstanding to the workers?
We're not changing our position, Aldrin, because it was the right position.
Why? Is it fair?
It is fair. It is fair to the people who have to pay.
If we have gone into an agreement, you are the employer, I am the employee, we go into an agreement, you say that this is the salary increase that you're going to receive, and the next thing the mayor then changes all of that because of the financial state of the municipality, which is understandable. But now the council or the mayor is saying that we're going to go into negotiations again, but those negotiations are not going to speak about where we have reneged on our agreement.
So how these negotiations work? The cities don't sit at a negotiating table with organized labor. We're represented by SALCA, collectively. The city of Tshwane never had a say. And that's why in that agreement that's concluded, there's a clause that allows for municipalities who can't pay the increases to apply for exemption. So the municipality is acting within the provisions of the collective agreement. It's not a breach of the collective agreement. We're in court. We're following the processes. This is not a lawless response. Now, I want to put to you, what is the alternative? You pay the salaries, and then you have to cut back on services. Is that fair to the 4 million people in Tshwane? I don't think so. So what I want to say is that salary increases are negotiated on a 3-year basis. This next cycle is yet to be negotiated. But as a city, we understand. We can't forego increases each and every year. But the increases that we have forgone has allowed us to stabilize our financial situation.
So essentially you've taken from workers to ensure that you can run services efficiently in the city. And it is officials who are actually running the system. So it is officials that have failed.
Aldrin, as I've said to you, it's about the residents. It's about the 4 million people in Tshwane who depend on us to provide services. And we can't simply pass on the increases to them and expect them to pay. There are 19,000 employees in the city. We care deeply about them, but we also have to admit that they've benefited from salary increases in the past that were outside of the collective agreement. That has to be acknowledged. That 2.6 billion in salary increases in 2019 didn't go into the ither, it went into the pockets of employees of the city. And it's time to rebalance the scale so that the residents benefit.
Mayor, thank you so much for your time. Cilliers Brink is the mayor of the city of Tshwane.